Well, that was about as unacceptable as the Pittsburgh Penguins have been this season. I am Dan Kingerskin, the Pittsburgh Hockey Now and the National Hockey Now YouTube channel. The Penguins lose 4-3 in a shootout to the Columbus Blue Jackets, but it wasn't the score, it was how they got there. It was a terrible first 10 minutes with everything to play for, with an out-of-town scoreboard delivering Christmas gift after Christmas gift. The Penguins gave it all back. With a 3-1 third period lead, the Penguins gave it all back again, twice in the last 4 games, and several times in the month of March. The Penguins have had multi-goal third period leads, only to drop kick them back to the other team almost with a malice for success. And that becomes the point that is almost an inexplicable, bewildering point about this team. They can get a multi-goal third period lead. They just don't close it out. And it's not just the fact that they don't close it out because the other team outplays them. It's that they help out the other teams with horrific turnovers, terrible defense, absolutely lacks defensive zone coverage. You thought the questions on Twitter were tough? I'm only getting started here because this was the chance. If the Penguins win on Saturday, if they beat Columbus, as they should have done, they were right there in position with 11:01 to go, a 3-1 lead. What do the Penguins do? 9 seconds later, Chris Letang, who had maybe his worst game of the season, got undressed once again by Kirill Marchenko. Marchenko was toying with Letang throughout the entire game, and he was filthy, was Marchenko. But still, Letang is the Penguins' number 1 defenseman. You can't bite on the same outside-in move multiple times, maybe once. It happens to even the best, but multiple times. Losing puck battles, looking exhausted, quite frankly. Letang was a major culprit, but so was the rest of the team. There really weren't a lot of innocent bystanders in this squandered lead, because the reality was the Penguins stopped attacking. They got that third goal, and it was all Columbus for the next 10 minutes. In fact, boy, how would this have been for a storyline? And for all of you history revisionists who think somehow Alex Nylander didn't get a shot with the Penguins, despite ample shots, by the way, and despite most of you saying back then that Nylander had gotten a shot and had wasted it, Nylander has a breakaway with 3 seconds to go to beat the Penguins in regulation. Erik Karlsson catches him, doesn't get a shot off. That would have been a story that probably would have cemented the history revisionism, quite frankly, that somehow Alex Nylander was a great player who Mike Sullivan wouldn't give a chance to, and all of that nonsense that is, I understand fans trying to explain the inexplicable, trying to put words to emotions that shouldn't exist, trying to make sense of a nonsensical situation, and that's where the Penguins are. Taking a look at the performances not to like, obviously Letang is at the top of the list. Evgeny Malkin really took a huge step back on Saturday. For as good as he was on Thursday, was as bad as he was on Saturday. Turnovers and defensive zone lapses where he looped, big loops, leaving his guy open. I think on the tying goal, Alex Wenberg should have been covered, really. Yeah. It was, I'm sorry, not Alex Wenberg. I get Zach Werenski. Apologies to my fellow Pole. Werenski. Malkin went to the wrong side of the ice. There was 8 wide open. Here is probably the most unacceptable thing, though, about the Penguins. I mean, on the surface, we can talk about blowing leads. We can talk about defensive miscues. The deeper part of this problem is the lack of motivation. We went over it this week. I mean, I talked to a couple players who they knew the scenarios, by which they could get back into the playoff race. It's quite simple. And it happened on Saturday. Washington lost, although they got a point. The Flyers lost. The Islanders lost. The Penguins win. They would have been 5 points back of the Capitals. I'm sorry, 6 points back of the Capitals. And they came out absolutely flat. Inexplicable. They had a lead in the third period, and they almost willingly gave it away. Struggling to find motivation is probably the most unacceptable thing I have seen in 20 years of covering this team. I haven't seen a team quite like this ever before. I was around for Generation Next or Generation X or X Generation, all the iterations that the marketing people tried to call that hot garbage. But they tried. This team, I'm telling you what, I think I've said inexplicable probably half a dozen times here in the first 6 minutes. And that's maybe being kind. That's because I can't use other words that you probably would use. Clearly, this team has something broken within it. I wrote that back in November. I really hammered it in December, and here we are in March, and obviously it never got fixed or fixed itself. To answer some of the questions on Twitter, I'm not going to go over names and all that stuff because it was some of the, and I apologize for maybe being a little bit harsh, but it was some of the typical tripe that gets trotted out when the Penguins lose. Somehow it was Jeff Carter's fault. It's all Mike Sullivan's fault. Let's talk about faults here. Mike Sullivan bears some blame for a team that can't get up for the game. At this point in the season with everything to play for. Yeah, he bears blame for that. He doesn't bear blame for putting Jeff Carter back into the lineup. Jonathan Gruden, Sam Poulin, Jesse Puljujarvi were flying for a game. There's not a coach in the NHL who's going to trust that line long term. There just isn't, because Jonathan Gruden's a bubble player. Sam Poulin, let's be honest here, I hate to say I've been telling you for a while, but I've kind of tried to subtly and even maybe softly tell you that his skating isn't NHL quality. He lacks a certain agility or explosiveness. He's a bubble player. And you look at Jesse Puljujarvi's career arc. There's nothing there to suggest that he is going to be an impact player. Maybe blips and bits and pieces. So when you have a third line or a fourth line like that have one good game or even a good game and a half, as they did, first part of Colorado, then they kind of went away, and then a very good game against Carolina, there is no empirical evidence or emotional trust there to assume it's going to keep going. That's why Jeff Carter's back in the lineup. Don't harp on that. That's just wasting time and energy. It is watching the Penguins' core, specifically Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, have a terrible game simultaneously. It's watching Lars Eller try in vain to get the puck deep, but there was never support. There was never the second wave. The Penguins didn't get the puck between the dots. The Penguins didn't win those puck battles. They didn't get the second chances. They didn't continue to apply pressure, that building momentum that finally snaps in the celebration of the red light behind the goal. The Penguins didn't do that. They got 3 goals. They were quick strikes. In fact, Drew O'Connor's goal that made it 2-1 was the quickest strike. Columbus was pressuring the Penguins, and the shots were just trickling wide. Alex Nedeljkovic, who played great. Let's get to Alex Nedeljkovic in just a second. The Penguins transitioned. One of their better transitions of the day. Lars Eller bolts the zone, actually, goes and gets a loose puck in the Blue Jacket zone. He holds it, holding on to pucks. He does that 1-on-4, draws the defense. Penguins get possession. They keep possession, and then Russ zips the pass to O'Connor as they do the quick line change there. Let's talk about Alex Nedeljkovic. And I didn't mention this, but after the game on Thursday night, when the Penguins beat Columbus in Pittsburgh, I did 2 of these videos, never publishing the first one because I thought I said too much about the Nedeljkovic Jarry situation, too much that is unsubstantiated or maybe that isn't proven. I think what we're going to see here, I think we're seeing Nedeljkovic on a hot streak. I do think there's a little something there that we probably won't get the full story. Why a Penguins #1 goalie is sitting on the bench down the stretch is certainly interesting. And if you want to know what I said on Thursday night, you'll have to watch the last video from Thursday night. Nedeljkovic was great on Saturday. Yes, they lost 4-3. He took the blame for a couple of those goals. Yeah, they scored a couple of quick goals on me. I could have done more. No. Listen, you give Marchenko a rip from that point in the ice, it's 50-50. And he made great shots. In the shootout, you go 5 rounds, you're going to give up a couple. That's not on the goalie there. It should have never, ever gotten to that point. It's not like Columbus is Colorado. You know what I'm saying? All right, so I apologize. I have absolutely gone over the top rope with an elbow splash on the Penguins. I think they deserved it Saturday. And it's bewildering. It's like every time they have a chance for success, they turn in one of these games. If you have a psychology or a doctorate in psychology and you can figure this out, I was talking to Jeff Carter about it this week as well. He's like, yeah, if you can figure this out, let us know. Where it goes, why it's not there, where it comes and where it goes. Well, the Penguins lose 4-3 in a shootout from the Blue Jackets press conference room. I'm Dan Kingerski on the National Hockey Now, the Pittsburgh Hockey Now YouTube channel. Like and subscribe.